And good morning. I'm Andrea Drake. Welcome to the special Viewpoint Hour. Many may be apprehensive when it comes to engaging with someone who has a disability, but this morning we want to help break down those barriers, and you can join us as we explore this unique perspective and experiences of my special guests, Beth Seiler and Ronda Hall. I'm your host again, Andrea Drake, for the special Viewpoint Hour. I do want to start by thanking both Beth and Ronda for bringing this topic of disability awareness to me and sharing their journey with us here this morning. We're going to go ahead and start with introductions from both of you, and we do want to hear a little bit about yourself. Share with us your disability and why this is so important to you here this morning. Good morning, ladies. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ronda, let's go ahead and start with you.
Thank you. So I have been a person that has gone through learning disabilities, which is dyslexia and processing disorder, as well as ADHD. I was a little late to life to find out that I had those struggles, and I just began to go through finding tools to make life easier. My friend Beth has brought this topic. It's very near and dear to her. And she said, Rhonda, we need to get the word out about this. And so I am joining her on this journey.
Excellent. And Beth, always a big listener of all of our shows, and we see you out and about in our communities, and we appreciate you bringing this here to us for this special hour. And go ahead and share a little bit about yourself, your disability, and again, as Rhonda had mentioned, why this is so important to you.
Well, hello, everyone. I have married my high school sweetheart. My college sweetheart, excuse me. And we've been married 52 years, and we had 4 sons. And we've lived mostly in rural California, our whole marriage. And my disability is I was born 2 months premature. I weighed less than 3 pounds. I was put in an incubator. I was born in 1949. I'm 74. And back then, they rushed babies to the incubators and gave them 70% oxygen. And it took 7 or 8 years before they figured out it was the oxygen, but 92% of the people were blind and retarded. And I was highly fortunate. I was blind in my left eye, but I had some vision in my right eye. I had about 2400ths vision. It later improved in my 40s and 50s to closer to 2200ths vision. And what that means is if you're looking at something, I have to be 20 feet from it, and you can see that same object at 400 feet. So as you can see, that's pretty small percentage. But I was highly fortunate also in that I had good close-up vision. I could read normal print, but I had to literally hold the book or the needlework or whatever 2 inches away. So, and I beat all the odds. I didn't go blind until I was age 61. So I felt highly fortunate that I had all those years of sight.
Excellent. And again, welcome both of you. Thanks for being here this morning. Now, disability. Let's talk about your abilities, because folks with disabilities are very capable of everything, but there's also a stigma about it, and that most folks don't see it that way.
Yes, so ability. Sometimes we get caught up. I know for me, I thought I was stupid because I couldn't process, like in a math class with numbers. I would get told the same thing the whole class would, and it would take me months to understand. Or if the teacher only taught in one way, I couldn't understand. And so it took me until I was in college, and I realized I was in a psychology class, and the professor was talking. If you have this or that or this, you might have learning disabilities. And we took a little quiz. It had 50 questions. And he said, so if you can answer yes to 10 of these, it's highly probable you have a learning disability. And so I did the little quiz, and I went up to him after class and said, I was able to say yes to 48 of the 50. So, and he was blown away because I was a sophomore in college. I had fair grades, and he said, have you ever been tested? And I said, well, no. And so he out of the kindness of his heart, took me to his clinic, and I was able to be tested and found out that I had ADHD and processing disorder and dyslexia. And then at that point of my journey, I began to seek for tools. He taught me some things of when you read, you need to do this. And when you learn, you need to ask for a different style of teaching if somebody else is not giving to you. And then I began passionately trying to find tools for other students, because I'm like, if I didn't know about it, there's other families that don't know about it. And so when I began to find ways, and then I became a teacher, so I was able to make sure when I was teaching that I differentiate the way that I taught. Make sure you're doing hands-on and audio and touching and smelling. And then I found out I was a good teacher because I taught so far different than what the normal teaching style was, because I taught how I learned, which was all hands-on and making sure all your senses are involved. And we did a lot more play than we did sitting, because I can't sit very well for very long. And so that, and then I realized I was more smart than I realized, because I just had a different way to do it.
And don't you think a lot of children experiencing the same as you have are feeling that way too, and that it's common to be diagnosed late with any of this because of that that stigma that, oh, it's just I'm just not as smart as everyone else.
Yes, and it's not a visible disability, and a lot of times children with ADHD they're naughty, and they don't listen, and they don't behave. Right. And so nowadays it has been much more common thing to be diagnosed with and have tools for. Teachers are being taught how to teach children with ADHD. But back in the early 80s, that wasn't a thing. And you were a naughty child if you couldn't sit still, keep your hands in your laps, and don't talk when everyone's talking. And with ADHD, if a statement comes to your brain, you just spurt it out, and then you're in trouble for talking in class. Or if I have something I want to tell my best friend Beth, I'm just going to tell her because it's right there on my tongue. And with boys, a lot of boys, it's a very active movement sort of behavior. And so that doesn't go well in the little classrooms that we want everyone to sit and behave like a good little girl.
Right.
Sitting, not moving, not talking.
Mm-hmm. Now, Beth, on the other side of the spectrum, Ronda was saying that her disabilities aren't visible, but yours is.
Mine was very visible. And before I go on about myself, I want to tell everybody how accomplished Ronda is and all the wonderful things she does in the church, the Assembly of God church that she belongs to, and all the wonderful things she brings to her job and her community.
She's definitely a light in our community.
Yes.
I'll say it. And so are you, as Beth. We appreciate both of you.
I've done a lot of disability awareness speaking over the years, and the one thing I always do is ask a room of people, what sense or ability would you least want to lose? And it's almost always unanimously eyesight. And obviously it was very visible, especially when I was younger, because I hadn't learned tricks to deal with it yet, particularly. But from the time I was a little girl, when people said, "You can't do that, Beth," I said, "Oh yeah, just watch." And so what I'm about to tell you is a list of things that I've been able to do being legally blind my whole life, and also then being totally blind. And I still can do about half the things on the list. But I don't want you to think I'm arrogant or bragging, because I'm not at all. I'm not an arrogant person. But starting with, I did several kinds of needlework. The only thing I can still do is knitting. I play several instruments, notably folk guitar. I've taught guitar since I was about 15 in all different types of settings. I write children's educational books, and I forgot to mention I'm also an elementary, special ed, and community college teacher. I was probably one of the first legally blind elementary teachers in the country. I went to Humboldt State College, and my advisor with a special program I was in was just amazed, and he basically intimidated, and that there was, it wasn't done, but he was very encouraging. Anyway, my first book in 1988 actually sold over 1 million copies. So it's something near and dear to my heart also to write, to educate children through books. The next thing is I was almost always an officer of every club and organization I belonged to since junior high. I was a church youth group leader for years, campfire leader, 4-H project leader for years. I worked as a camp counselor for 7 summers. The next thing is as far as sports, I couldn't do too many sports except for big ball things. I kickball, 3-5s up, dodgeball, things like that I could play. The only really sport I could play was volleyball. And the reason I could do that is because I wasn't very good at hitting the volleys back, but I had a killer serve and usually got 6 or 8 points for the team. So, and another thing I always did is my husband and I built 3 houses. I helped building houses, chicken coops, fences. As far as other sports, backpacking, hiking, fishing, camping, canoeing, kayaking, sailing. I did all 3 kinds of skiing, roller skating, bicycle riding, ice skating, and I'm sure there's more that I can't think of right now. And also, another thing, I have raised and trained horses, donkeys, cows, llamas, alpacas, sheep, goats, and other kinds of poultry. I've always done our gardening and snowshoeing, and there really is more that because every time they said you can't do something, it just gave me the impetus to do it. Mm-hmm. So I just love doing tons of different things, and so that's what I've accomplished. And a lot of people, when you're blind, or even legally blind, they just can't fathom that you can do anything. Even now people say, well, how do you still cook? And I say, it's no problem. I cook like I always did. The only thing I can't do is flip pancakes. They end up on top of each other. But
so what are those tools and things to help you overcome all of those hurdles and accomplish these things? Because to you, it's normal.
Me? I just learned from a young age I was always running, even though I couldn't see steps. When you only have vision in one eye, you have no depth perception, so you can't see that there's a step down. But I really didn't let it bother me. I just started using my intelligence, I think, gradually as a child and as I got older. I remember getting slammed in the face with tether balls because I didn't see them. It was partly because I didn't give up, but when I was partially sighted, it really wasn't too bad. I could see the sidewalk, it just was, and maybe the rock on the sidewalk was blurry. But when I finally went blind, some of the tools I've used, we live on 7 acres now, and I have ropes going down to the pasture for feeding and ropes over to the, and I also have what's called screen reader software, JAWS screen reader software. I can do pretty much anything on the computer, look at websites, type grocery lists, type letters, type books, email, do everything. When I was with the Department of Blind Services for California, they gave me some tools that really help. I have an ID reader like they use in the grocery stores, where you can scan the barcode, so I can tell if it's a can of peaches or a can of olives. I basically, when I was a little girl too, I practiced walking into walls with my eyes closed, and I have a sense, they call it, I forgot what they call it, but I have that. I can walk through a forest of trees and not hit a tree because I feel like I'm being pushed back. It's like and another tool I use, I pick up auras off of people. I can tell whether they're mad or angry or friendly or loving toward me, and so I use that tool for relationships. Your senses are not better when you're blind, but you're just more attuned to it. My hearing's not any better than it ever was, but I'm used to paying attention to my hearing and my touch and different things like that. I basically, and the old adage of counting steps doesn't work because depending on how you're feeling, your steps are different lengths.
Good point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When I first went blind, I couldn't walk a straight line, but I've learned in the last 13 years to walk a straight line because you don't have visual cues for things. So I've just learned to use my other senses to help discern the world around me. I don't know. Some of it's so automatic because I've been doing it since I was born. As far as tools, as far as my senses, I've been doing it since I was little, and so it just kind of, when I went totally blind, it was fine. So.
Amazing. And how about you, Rhonda? How has things, even technology nowadays, how has that helped you in your journey?
Well, technology, because one of my big struggles is spelling. I can see a word is incorrect, but I cannot fix the vowels. So I mean, when I was teaching, I had a dictionary on my desk, and my third graders could fluently use a dictionary because I would say, okay, everybody, we're going to have a quiz. Find the word exploration, because I really couldn't spell it. So they were able to use that. But nowadays it's so easy with speech to text, because I do a lot of speech to text because it spells it correctly for me, and I'm able to correct it that way. And so that is one technology piece that I've been able to use. Researching and Googling things makes it a lot easier, because everyone, when I was a kid, I would remember my parents saying, get a dictionary. But if you don't know how to spell the word, it's really hard to look up in a dictionary, And so this way I'm able to have the word correct, and then I can look up in the dictionary. And so that's one tool that technology has really enabled me to be a better writer. And now with Word Grammarly, I was able to go through and really quick. So I have a son that also has a severe learning disability, and I noticed it in kindergarten because I was like, oh, I could see the struggles he's having is what I struggled with. So I began to fight for him to get tested, but they don't test early enough, in my opinion, because he had the fabulous personality. If he heard one book, he could memorize and quote it back to you, and it looked like he was reading. So he was doing all the proper skills to look to everyone like he had everything under control. So I went to our first IEP meeting for my son. My husband and I are both educated people. I'd worked in special education system as a paraeducator for over 7 years. I'd been around it. I sit down in an IEP meeting, and I had no idea what they were saying. They were saying these different things, and they speak in letters, this IEP and this WDZ.
Yes. All the acronyms.
All the acronyms, yeah. And so I walk out of that meeting with my husband, and I'm like, James, I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what the laws are. I don't understand what our rights are. What is my son's rights? What is my rights as a parent? So I decided I'm going to go get my master's. I was, when I went to go get my BA, I wanted to be an educator with all my heart. And the professor there told me, I'm sorry, your SAT scores weren't high enough. You can't be a teacher. And I struggled with that because she told me I would be a good enough preschool teacher. And as Beth, when people told me I can't, that's my challenge. It's like, oh yeah, you want to bet? And so I think I've noticed in a lot of people that have disabilities, they also have a powerful keep going a tool that is built in them and ingrained in them. And so I did struggle. I did get my BA. It wasn't in teaching because I did not have the support of that teacher. And I got it in theater because I wanted to teach theater. And as I went in after that meeting, I went and got my master's in special education. I was able to graduate with honors, but I couldn't pass the CSET, and it's a test that they judge teachers on. If you pass it, you can teach, and if you can't pass it, you can't teach. So I took it 13 times and was unable to pass it. And so I ended up, at that time, I had was finishing up my master's, and I had a special education classroom, and I lost my classroom. and it was heartbreaking.
How devastating.
And so, you're okay. Just turn the mic down. You're good. And so I got a hold of one of my master teachers, and they said, well, if you can't pass this test, you cannot get your credential. And it broke my heart because I'd already spent 3 years.
So much time.
My thesis was done. And so one day I got a different advisor, and he said, well, you could get a master's of science instead of a master's of arts. You just don't have your credential. And I said, okay. So I was able to get that, but it also did give me insight of laws and the rights of families with children with disabilities. And so I was able to learn more. And then I got a couple years I spent substitute teaching, and I landed in public health, which was an area that I never thought I would be. And God has given me the opportunity to continue to use that, because my title that I work is maternal, child, adolescent health. And in that section is children and youth with special health care needs. So I am a parent support. I could go into IEPs with people. And one of my understandings, I've sat on both sides of the kidney table. I've been a teacher, I've been a parent, and I've been a student. So I feel I have a different understanding. And I'm excited that I get to do that. I've been able to help several families work the process and learn how. And I'm not a battle against our special ed department. We lack in Susanville. When I was a teacher, I had to battle for what my kids deserved. But we lack. We lack in our teachers that are speech teachers. We hardly have enough. We don't, and they have to travel all over Lassen County. Mm-hmm. And so it's not a battle. We're partners. Our parents, teachers, the special ed department, we need to partner together. And sometimes we get in battles and saying, well, they deserve this. Well, they do, but how can we get it in our small county?
Yes, definitely. And not to get too sidetracked, off the topic here, but you were speaking how it is lacking here within our schools. Do you think that's because of a lot of the red tape that's now put in place and a lot of the legal barriers that are kind of limiting the folks that want to go into these roles?
I agree. Yes, legal barriers are definitely, and it's a lot of paperwork. So someone just wanting to go in and change children's heart that's in special ed, there's so much paperwork and so much, like you said, legal tape that you're having to push through, and the state is putting down, well, you need to take this test, and they need to do these, and then you have to do this, and you almost lose time for teaching. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. And I know our special ed folks, they work hard, and they work on doing the best. So, yes.
Excellent. And we are just about here at the bottom of the hour. We do take a little brief break where we just kind of gather some of our thoughts here, but we'll take a little few minutes and we'll return back with our conversation. But before we do get to that, I just want to have you both share real quick, what's the importance of educating people, especially of all ages, about disabilities? Beth, let's go ahead and start with you.
Well, I'd like to start with a quick story. I was substituting in drama and music classes, and a young woman came up to me and said, Mrs. Seiler, I wish I could have the chance to tell about my disability. Okay? Erica had cerebral palsy. She was ambulatory, one of the most sweet, kind, wonderful people I've ever known, beautiful smile. And I got to thinking, and I talked to the principal, and we did a disability awareness assembly for the high school. And one of my students and I did musical numbers in between speakers, and Erica spoke about her disability. And she came up to me the next Monday morning. Well, it was a Friday assembly. Next Monday morning, Mrs. Seiler, a girl invited me over to spend the night at her house, and we rode bikes. She said, I've never been invited to spend the night at anyone's house.
Oh.
So I think in a nutshell, that tells the importance and the discrimination I've faced over the years. To be honest, most of it was from fellow teachers that didn't think I could possibly be a good teacher, even though I was told I was an excellent teacher. So those are my reasons for wanting to promote disability awareness.
I also think disability awareness is so important for parents to know, because sometimes it's a very scary thing to look down at your 2.5-year-old with a diagnosis of your child has autism. So helping families be aware of what is available for their help, and the discrimination. I think if we start young with children, they will understand better, instead of staying away from the child in a wheelchair or who has Down syndrome, or the child that is more happy standing on top of the desk than sitting in the desk, and teaching about ADHD, and if a child has Tourette's or an adult has Tourette's, if people know more, they're more accepting. Otherwise it creates fear, and people say stupid things. And so I think education will make us a better community.
I agree. I definitely agree. Now, we're just going to be taking a brief break here, just a couple of minutes. We are going to be returning back, though, because we want to hear what interventions have been helpful and things that people can do that would be helpful and appreciated. We'll dive into that as we get back here from this brief break and continue on our conversation about disability awareness here with Ronda Hall and Beth Seiler. Keep it right here on 93 JDX 1240 KSUE. We'll be back with this special Viewpoint Hour.
Community thrives. From confidence and resilience to team building and character development, sports can build a strong foundation for success on and off the field. That's why Hat Creek Construction, located in beautiful Susanville, has proudly supported and invested in North State youth programs like high school sports, FFA, and 4-H for over 50 years. Visit us at hatcreekconstruction.com.
There is a lot of excitement at Susanville Auto Center with the arrival of all-electric vehicles. More choices than ever before with Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Jeep, and Ford. Now showing at their exciting new showroom, Highway 395 and Richmond Road. Or visit them at SusanvilleAutoCenter.com.
Lassen Municipal Utility District is dedicated to connecting and supporting the community we serve by providing safe, reliable, and sustainable service. To learn more about our mission statement, visit us at lmud.org. You and LMUD, more powerful together.
No one can help you get in shape and stay in shape better than New Image Racquetball and Fitness Center. From their awesome aerobic classes to the most complete free weights and Nautilus area in Northeast California, New Image Fitness is here to support your commitment to good health.
Carlson's Tire Pros offers a straightforward approach to tire and auto service that always includes nationwide warranties with a hassle-free customer experience. Carlson's Tire Pros has a tire to fit any need, guaranteed. On Riverside Drive, Susanville, or visit them online at carlsonstirepros.com.
Lassen High continues to excel on and off the field, including their exciting partnership with Lassen Community College, where their students take part in the new registered nursing and automotive programs. Lassen High School continues to be a top-performing school as measured by the state in testing and options for their students. Bottle and Brush Art Bar serves a large selection of fine wine and craft beers. Gather your friends and join us for exciting trivia nights, a variety of live music, our wine tasting club, and paint nights. Open 12 to 8 Wednesday through Saturday and until 9 p.m. on Fridays. Proud sponsor of local sports.
Cal Thurber and CST General Contractors have been serving Chester in the Lake Almanor Basin for over 25 years. For all of your construction and electrical needs, call Cal, a local dealer and installer of Generac generators. Call Cal today.
Legacy Optometry is a full-scope eye care practice offering LASIK and cataract postoperative care, macular degeneration and glaucoma management, dry eye treatment, as well as comprehensive eye health exams. The Legacy team is here to assist you with your eye care needs.
The Diamond Mountain Casino and Hotel, along with sports staff, coaches, and volunteers, all share a vision of helping all youth reach their full potential in life. Without the support of the community, sports programs would not exist. The Diamond Mountain Casino and Hotel is a proud sponsor of youth sports. Let's play!
Lassen Community College has a wide selection of classes from administration of justice courses to basic firefighting, gunsmithing, and their exciting new RN program. Choose your new career, new degree, or certificate in your chosen field of study. Find out more. Visit lassencollege.edu.
TNS Trucking and Ready Mix in Susanville is a proud supporter of local youth sports. Whether you're looking for sand, gravel, rock, cinders, aggregate, or ready mix concrete, Tim and Sandy can take care of your needs. TNS Trucking and Ready Mix, locally owned and operated. Give them a call at 530-257-3122.
And welcome back to this special Viewpoint Hour as we delve in, explore disability awareness. My guests, again, if you're just joining us, we have Ronda Hall and Beth Seiler. Now, we wanted to continue our conversation, and we want to share those interventions that have not been helpful for you through the years, because I think that's an interesting topic to dive into, because, you know, a lot of folks just, I don't know if they're not aware or just, what's your experience with that? We'll go ahead and get to that. Beth.
Well, three things I'd like to mention. For one thing, people stand a foot away from me and yell. They think I can't hear. And also, they treat me like I'm mentally challenged, you know, and I'm not trying to brag, but as Ronda told about all her honors, in 11th grade, I was honors service student of the year out of 500 girls in honors classes, and so I'm not mentally challenged.
Why do you think that perception is
I don't know. I think people tend to think if a person has one handicap, they have multiple, and often that's the case. But like Rhonda's is learning disabilities, mine is blindness. We don't have any other disabilities that I'm aware of, you know, and so I don't know. And the other thing is, I'll be with my husband or with someone else, and they'll say, "Do you think your wife wants French fries or a baked potato?" And I go,
like, I'm right here.
And the other thing is, this wasn't so much the problem while I was legally blind, because I could do so much more. But being blind now, I was at the age I didn't want a job in the first place. But when I volunteer to help with certain organizations, people say, "Oh, that'd be nice," and they never call you back because they just don't think that you possibly could contribute. But I'd like to bring up the point that one of the giftedness of people with disabilities, besides tenacity and determination to succeed, is that we don't volunteer for something if we can't do it, because we don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to make it bad for other people with disabilities, because if we fail, it's just going to reinforce people's idea that we can't do things. And so, you know, I really encourage people, if you're in a position for hiring or for a new volunteer, know that that person is not going to be going for that job or that volunteer position unless they think they can do it. Because when we excel at things, we believe we can do it. We believe in ourselves. And something I wanted to mention, people with disabilities seem to fall into two categories from people I've known in all my teaching in special ed. They either wallow in their misery or they excel. And there's not much in between. And if there's people that are wallowing in their misery and they're hesitant to do things, encourage them to do it. Say, "I'll help you," you know, but don't just automatically dismiss someone who is capable and says they want to do it just because you think they aren't capable.
How have you broken down those barriers too when you're faced with someone who is yelling in your face because they think you have the incapacity to hear despite just being blind?
To be honest, I'm a shy person. I don't do anything.
I'm that way too. I can see that. Rhonda, what's been your experiences with that? What are things that have not been helpful?
I think, well, for me, as a young child, I was always in trouble for talking. And I couldn't control my talking, and that is a part of ADHD. It's a very, you think it, you say it, and my memory, I've always struggled, and that's part of a processing disorder. You take in information and you file it somewhere very special, and it doesn't come out until months later, 3 a.m. and the retrieval process is almost impossible when someone's demanding it. So when you're taking a test, to retrieve information that you know. So I was treated on the stupid side. Well, we'll just not give her that test because she's just not going to pass it. Or we won't invite her to be a part of this group because she'll interrupt it because she's too loud and noisy. And as an adult, I think I've worked very hard for many years to overcome and read and research and learn about what my disabilities are to make them be abilities that, sometimes I will correct people, hey, can you say that in a different way? Or I'm not understanding what you're saying, because I'm taking bits and pieces of what they're saying and I am interpreting different. And that happens to me a lot. I'll interpret what someone's saying because I didn't understand the way they said it. And so I am not as shy as Beth, and I will tell people, or if for me distractions, water bottle sounds, outside sounds, I will turn around and tell them, you need to put that down or I'm gonna throw it in your face. So but it took me a long time to realize it was a distraction for me, not an irritant. I was distracted by it. So what I was trying to say or what I was trying to do, a sound, a tapping pencil, something like that, to me it came off as an irritant, and I was very rude and demonstrant to get that to stop. But I realized what was happening in my brain. It creates distraction, then irritability, and then I can't do anything but think about that sound. And that happens a lot, I think, to students in classrooms. And they're not aware that it's actually distracting and stopping you what you're supposed to be doing, because that's all you could think about now.
Do you find like having to point that out and emphasize that to folks who are maybe doing those things around you, saying, hey, look, I have a disability, a processing or however, ADHD, and that is causing this. Do you feel like having to explain all that is helpful?
I don't as much, because I fear, so just a little note, my father was a special ed teacher. And when I got to college and found out my disabilities, I called my dad very angry. And I said, Dad, I have disabilities. And he said, no, you have ways you have to do it different. And I was very mad that he didn't get me tested. And he said, Rhonda, where are you at in your life? I'm like, well, I'm in college. And he said, I did not want that to be a crutch for you. You do not need the way you do it different and the way God aligned your brain to be a crutch. And in the county we lived in, we were not in Lassen, but the county we lived in, any child with any sort of disability or behavior issue literally was in one classroom in the back 40, and you did puzzles all day. Nobody really graduated. And my dad did not want that. And so he knew. And so he made sure that he knew I had the capability and didn't want me to rely on my disability as a crutch. And so I don't often say, well, because I have this is why I can't do that, because I don't want people to look down on me, which also people don't say I have this situation because they don't want people to look down on them.
Mm-hmm. Do you think society is more acceptable nowadays, though, than back then?
I mean, I don't know about you, Beth, but for ADHD and learning disabilities, I feel that we've become more aware. I think that teachers are being educated in these areas. So I think it's more of awareness, but I feel that we still have a ways to go.
Mm-hmm. And how about you, Beth? What's your thoughts on that?
I honestly don't think people are any more aware about blindness than they were when I was a kid. It just seems that people don't understand, that blind people can do so many things because they can't fathom being blind themselves. I think now that I'm older, I do speak up and tell people, what I can do, but I'm always afraid if I do speak up and tell people what I can do, they'll think I'm arrogant and braggartly. And I don't want that because I don't feel I am. And so I think it's kind of different, but I don't think people are that much more aware of blind people. I think a lot of people look at, people my age that have gone blind, oh, that poor person, But I always looked at my disability as a gift. I mean, it taught me patience, tenacity, determination, kindness, empathy, and dozens of other qualities that I might not have had as a person had I not had the disability. But I honestly don't think there's been a lot of progress in people's understanding of blind people.
And how do you think that can change?
Well, one of the things is I've done disability awareness speaking over the years, and I would hope to do a whole bunch more here in Susanville. I'd be glad to come to your club and organization, and I don't want any money. I don't want anything. I would like to just mention my books on Amazon, my educational books, so that not because I don't make much money on each book, but I want people to help educate their children better. It's a way that I can help Ronda's department in helping children. And one of my books is called Give Me a Chance, and it's a book of short stories about kids with disabilities and how they teach people to treat them normally. And so hopefully I recommend, I hope that maybe some of you listeners would look at my books on Amazon and order them to help educate your kids or your neighbor's kid or your grandchildren or whatever.
Definitely.
Well, I think kids now are being made more aware. Students are in general ed now, where we're back in the 70s and 80s. Any student with disabilities were not in general ed, so general ed students weren't aware. So I believe that children, but sometimes it is adult stupidity of lack of education, that they cannot get past, that they believe somebody that is a blind or in a wheelchair or deaf, that they cannot do what they do because of those crutches that they have. And I am here with Beth to say that is not true. In fact, I feel that a lot of people with disabilities, their capabilities, and they have other areas that shine because we've had to work so hard. I don't think my son is listening, but anyone that knows my middle son, his disability is in reading and writing, but his personality has overcome so much. And when he went to high school, I remember just crying. They're not going to protect him and they're not going to keep him safe. But because he's had to struggle to get what everyone else does, and he's worked very hard, my boy is graduating with a 4.0. And he has hardly used his services. His phone is his main tool because he could speech to text and text to speech, and because a lot of us have had to overcome so many other hurdles, we're able to climb mountain in a different way. We're able to work. I know as a teacher, I'm able to reach more students because I see things in different ways. And so it's just helping our community be aware.
How now, with a parent who has a young child, and all children like to stare and point, right? What would be your advice to that parent of how they should address that with their child if they do come across somebody who is blind, who does have ADHD, and they say, oh, this kid doesn't sit still in class? How do you feel a parent can best advise their children or approach that?
Beth, you want to start with that?
Well, one thing, when I was teaching children with ADHD in my classes, one year I had 20 students and 15 had ADHD. It was an interesting year. But one thing I stress with the children is I tell them, Tommy, I understand that it's difficult for you to sit still and pay attention. And when you hear a noise across the classroom, it's hard to, I understand. And I say, it's not your fault. And let's work with it together and talk about it, and I will help you in every way I can. And I think as a parent, that's the same thing. As a parent, our oldest son is ADD. He's not ADHD, but ADD. And talking about excelling, he was in the Marine Corps band and in the Army National Band for 20 years. He's now a music teacher. his students went to Carnegie Hall 2 years to perform, and the band students just went to Washington, D.C. to perform with the Pershing Owens Band. And Eric, even though he knew it was hard to pay attention and stuff, he just compensated with everything else, he did wonderfully. And I think as a parent, if you concentrate on your child's strengths, even though you know they have that challenge, becomes not that much of a big deal. Do you agree, Rhonda?
Yeah, I think so. And Beth, correct me if I'm wrong. I know that when I had classrooms and maybe we saw somebody in a wheelchair or a little person or somebody with a cochlear implant or that is signing, to maybe teach my students and my children to engage that person. Don't fear it. Come up, touch Beth and say, what's it like to be blind? Or, maybe ask the questions. I know people that I've studied deaf some, and I know deaf people say, talk to me, ask me questions. Don't fear me. Don't go around me because I'm on crutches or I am using a cane or I have a cochlear implant or in a wheelchair. Talk to me. Make me feel like a human. I want to be a human and validated just like anyone else. Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think I lost my thought.
That can happen.
Senior moments.
But you're encouraging folks to, if they do have that young child that's pointing at somebody and saying, why do they look like that? Say, well, why don't you go ask?
My point just came back.
Good.
I think one of the things with intervention that we can do as people with disabilities is tell people, anybody, if you see someone you notice something a little different about them, don't be afraid to ask. I love to talk about my blindness and my challenges because every time I do, I'm educating people and making them more open-minded so that they're going to treat the next 2 people better, and those 2 people will treat the next 2 people better, and it'll be just like a snowball rolling down a hill.
What are some of the other ways that things that people can do that would be helpful and appreciated other than just coming up and approaching and asking questions? What are some other things?
Well,
Beth?
I think they can read and educate themselves. I think anyone with the internet now, they can look up disabilities, look up different disabilities. And so the next time you find someone in a wheelchair, you know that it might be helpful to squat down to their level when you talk to them because it makes them feel included. It makes them feel like you're not superior to them.
One thing I know, Marshall Cuso and we have been working on making more abilities like for our parks. So if somebody, notice that someone's struggling to get on a wheelchair, maybe on a wheelchair but can't access something that is normal for most people to access, be a champion. Be a champion for us. Say, hey, I want to go to the board and say we should work on having more inclusive parks, and stuff like that. So and education is the biggest thing. And if you have questions, go to somebody and say, hey, can you educate my staff? I think the saddest stories Beth has told me is she did not get jobs because she was blind. And they look across in an interview process and not hire her because they didn't think that she could teach. But like Beth said, I'm not going to show up to an interview or go in front of a group of people if I don't think I can do that. Because I know I can do it if I'm there and showing up.
Excellent. I ran across an interesting article too that was from Banner Health, and not our medical center here, but the bigger corporation side of things. And it was just sharing easy ways to communicate with someone who's hard of hearing. So things like not just yelling at them and speaking more loudly, but speaking more clearly. Things like getting into an environment where, yes, it is a little bit quieter and say, hey, we're in a loud, noisy room. Let's just move to the side over here where it's quieter. Doing little things like that can really help somebody who is struggling with any kind of that disability, or even if they are in a wheelchair and you can't get down that curb, maybe help them in that process.
Yeah, with hard of hearing people, make sure you're facing them. Make sure they could
Lip
see
reading.
your face. and what you're saying. It's not even so much lip reading, but it's your voice. So if I'm talking like this and you're not going to hear me as clear. But yeah, slow down and ask them, what helps you? What can I do to help you be included in this situation?
Another thing too, as far as interventions, I've kind of been a hermit since I went blind semi, but my husband's retired and I can get out and do more things, but he doesn't always want to be with me. Maybe if I decide to go somewhere, people can be aware of that someone's alone and go say, can I help you? Let me know if you have to go to the bathroom. I'll be glad to take you. Things like that. It's amazing. Just going to public restrooms when you're blind is pretty scary. You don't know what,
You don't know what you're going to run into.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Or sit down on.
Yes.
So that's another thing. Be aware of people that have disabilities. Don't smother them with offering, come here, let me take you here, da-da-da-da-da. But offer to help. If you need my help, I'm right next to you. But don't smother me with things that I don't need help with, and I'll be honest with when I need help.
Very good message. Now, we are on the last few minutes of our viewpoint here with you ladies. Appreciate all what you have been saying throughout this hour, but I want you to share with us what's your overall message and what you want folks to know, how to break down those barriers and be more aware of disabilities and folks around that are experiencing these things.
So one thing that I would, early childhood development is something I'm really passionate about, but early intervention. Parents, if you're noticing something that is off, speak to your doctors, and if they're not listening to you, go to someone else. Early intervention, especially for things as autism, blindness, hearing, if you can get those little kiddos at 2 years old and start teaching them the tools they need, there is going to be greater success for them and you as a parent. So if you don't feel that your pediatrician or your doctor is listening to you, go to somebody else. Ask questions. Get online, because earlier intervention is going to help that child that may have a diagnosis or may have a disability be more successful.
Excellent.
Beth?
And Beth?
My mission, I guess, for the latter part of my life, I'm 74, is to do disability awareness and help educate people, and also through my educational books, educate children. That's kind of my emphasis. And my encouragement is find out about different disabilities. Have your group invite someone like me to come talk about disabilities. The more the subject is talked about openly, the more people will learn, and the more people won't go through the pain and humiliation of discrimination that I have. Now, I don't mean to say that my life has been horrible. I've had a wonderful life. I have a wonderful husband and children. I've had many, many wonderful opportunities. In high school, I don't ever remember being teased at all. My high school was exceptional in that way. But I just want to say, take every opportunity to educate yourself, educate your friends, find out about disabilities so we can erase this stigma, and especially of people that are blind, because that's the one thing people say they don't want to lose. I really, dear to my heart, I encourage people to find out about blind people, because there's more and more blind people.
Definitely. Well, ladies, we appreciate you joining us here this morning. And again, if you are just tuning in or happen to only catch a piece of the program, you can always head over to SierraDailyNews.com. You can access the Viewpoint Hour and re-listen to it, or catch any of those pieces that you might have missed. Feel free to share that as well. It's great having you both here today, expanding and breaking down those barriers around disability awareness. I think we hit a lot of great topics, and I hope a lot of folks did learn and listen from it, and we're able to go on from there and just do better things in our community. And we do appreciate both you. Again, Ronda Hall, Beth Seiler here with me this morning for this special Viewpoint Hour on disability awareness. Ladies, anything in closing you'd like to say in this last few seconds that we have here?
I met someone on an airplane, and we were complaining. He was about his disability and mine, complaining about how we were treated. And he wrote me later, and he said, it's wonderful you're doing public speaking because people can learn about the giftedness of those with disabilities. So make a friend who's disabled, because I think you'll find that they'll be one of your most special, devoted, loving friends you'll have.
Very well said. Thank you for tuning in here to 93 KJDX, Susanville, Chester, Quincy, and Portola for this special Viewpoint Hour. Thank you again, ladies. Folks, it is 10 a.m. Here's your Fox News updates.